Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the Right Stuf Anime Podcast. My name is Thomas Breckenridge.
I'm Quinn.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And it's been quite a long time since we put out a podcast. But we have a really good excuse. It's called the holiday sale.
Yeah.
And before that it was the Cyber Week sale. And before that it was the Black Friday week sale.
Yeah.
So we've all been busy helping out in the warehouse, picking, packing, receiving items in, putting items up on the sale for you guys to buy at awesome discounts right now. We're not even done yet. We still have 2 more weeks of the sale left.
Yay, 2 more weeks of wallet crying.
Yeah.
Ah.
But we finally got to the point where we were able to escape for an hour or so and record a podcast.
It was the great escape.
Yes. So this is going to be a little bit different than usual. We're going to kind of just touch on a couple of things we've purchased from the sale ourselves that we are currently enjoying. And then we're going to get into discussion over the last decade in anime. We're going to just kind of touch on every year a couple of the big shows that came out then, how the landscape of anime has really changed in these last 10 years, more than I would think any other decade of anime has. And then we're going to get into our top 5 our personal top 5 anime of the last decade.
Our personal.
Personal.
Underline.
Personal.
Yeah.
Bold.
This isn't gospel. This isn't like the top 5. This is our personal top 5.
You will disagree with us. Just accept it.
Or you'll find something new and love us.
Yeah, or we'll disagree with each other here at the table.
Yeah.
So I can almost guarantee you that everybody's going to have a pretty different list here. We all
Tom's
have
going to think half
very
our stuff is
different,
super.
very different taste. So. But yeah, we're going to do the first number 5 and number 4 of our list on this podcast. Next week, we will get another podcast out to you of our top 3 of the last decade. So we'll just get started here. And Quinn, what have you purchased so far from the holiday sale?
Too much. Let's see. Oh, shoot. A Bride Story. I got the manga I was missing out of that series.
Did you read Emma before that?
I've seen the anime of Emma.
You've seen it? Okay.
Yeah.
The Bride Story is amazing. And it just looks beautiful.
The first volume, I was kind of like, plot? Where's the plot? But it kicks in gear near the end, and then it's like, oh, this is good. And it's following a character I didn't think it was going to be the main character, so that was surprising. That was nice. Let's see, what else did I get? There's too many things. I'll have gotten Vinland Saga, the ones that I was missing. I'm filling out the Royal Tutor. The Housewife one from Vertical. Totally blanking on the total title.
Housewife?
Yeah, the Delinquent Housewife.
Yep.
I've got all that one. There's a running theme here. It's mostly manga that I've been buying. And my wallet is crying. And will be continuing to cry. But I saved up, so it's all right.
Mostly manga so far then?
Mostly manga. I've gotten the Megalobox GWP. I got the... Oh, there's a title. I can see the cover. Yeah, that doesn't help at all. But...
Wait, what does the cover look like? Maybe I could help.
I can tell you the plot line, because the prince is younger than the princess he's to marry, but she can conjure rain, and they're currently in a drought. It's a Sentai title. I have the wrong title in my head. I know you guys don't know.
I've looked at too many items.
Unless it's like Morbido, but that's
not.
Yeah, okay.
And that is sadly, the Blu-ray is out of print for
What's
that.
the title?
Never mind.
Morbido.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not Morbido.
Yeah. Great series.
Oh, overlap there. I didn't realize. Yeah. Yeah. And I know there's more manga that I've bought. There's a pile at home.
Yeah. Cool. Chris, what have you been buying?
Yeah, I've just been taking the opportunity to fill in gaps in my Gundam collection because, of course, you gotta have them all. So, got a couple Blu-rays to fill the gaps there. One thing I found when we were doing picking, I had not realized that Gunbuster 2 Die Buster got a Blu-ray release that we've got marked down pretty severely on the site right now. I think it's like $5,
yeah.
So I made sure to snap that up. It's if you like Gynax stuff, it's definitely, you can sort of see the connective tissue between like Fooly Cooly and Gurren Lagann in there. So I love me some weird surreal stuff, and that will be something that comes up later probably. So, but yeah, so I picked that up. I don't think I've saved up as much as Quinn as far as going in here, but I've got a few things. So
cool. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I was one of the lucky few that got one of those Gundam promo cards where they was like, were able to get a steep discount.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent most of what should have been my holiday sale money on the Gundam money.
It still counts.
Okay.
It's a present to yourself.
It's true. So yeah, I was able to get like pretty much all the Gundam that I wanted to get on Blu-ray. So that's really nice. I haven't already gotten. And then for the holiday sale, I was able to get Fooly Cooly on the Mega Deal.
Nice.
It's one of my favorite series, and it's about time I actually owned it.
There you go.
Hey, Will, you should tell us about that cool vinyl that we're offering.
Oh, you mean that super sweet Fooly Cooly vinyl set from Anime Limited?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's super sweet. It's got music by The Pillows from the TV show Fooly Cooly. Mm-hmm. It's got some great box art.
The Pillows is great. I love their soundtrack.
Yeah. No, it is really awesome. We are currently out of stock of it right now, but we will be getting some more here in January sometime. So check it out. I know that, Will, you might have been a part of it, did a video of just what the vinyl casing looks like, how much work they put into it.
Mm-hmm.
I demoed it on my vinyl player at home, so it is pretty damn awesome. So we also do have the Silent Voice vinyl as well, which is a really nice orchestrated soundtrack to that show. So, but then again, I digress. Will, did you have anything else that you wanted to add that you've bought from the sale, or?
Well, I was able to get that Dambo Nendroid figure off of the figure sale.
Oh yeah.
I
nice.
asked a couple weeks ago. So yeah, was able to finally get that. That was nice.
Cool. Well, my pickups have been the Megalobox Blu-ray from Viz. I got it when we had a limited quantity at a certain price. It is still in the sale, just not as steep discounted. And then I picked up this week the Hunter X or Hunter x Hunter 4 and 5 Blu-rays, as I want to collect that set, as it was one of my favorite shonen series of all time. And then I picked up something non-holiday related. I pre-ordered the 10th and final volume of Happiness. And then I got a couple gap fillers in To Your Eternity. And I bought my wife the Hermione Nendroid to complete her Harry Potter collection of Ron, Harry, and Hermione, and then eventually Snape will come.
If that was supposed to be a surprise present and she listens to this podcast, it's
No.
ruined.
So I give people presents when I buy them. So if it's a Christmas present and I have it already, you're getting it. So
I can't wrap. I don't want to wait.
Yep.
Wait, just
No.
here, have it. Happy December 12th.
Yeah, she got it like last week, so she already got one of her Christmas presents. So, and that's just kind of the way I've always done my gift giving. So,
Nice.
I think we're gonna try to fit this in real quick. Is anybody watching anything this season? I know it's been a while since we've kind of gotten together. Anything like Quinn?
I've been watching the My Hero Academia newest season and also Ascendance of a Bookworm. So those two have been my main thing. We've been so busy here, I've been asleep whenever I've been home, so it's been hard to try and get some new shows watched.
Yeah.
I've been rewatching Chihaya Furu. I'm currently in the second season, and then I was just going to jump into the third. Needed a bit of a refresher.
Yeah, I've literally only watched My Hero Academia and Ascendance of a Bookworm. Either two. Those are the only two things I'm watching.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just been kind of a crazy year. Chris?
Me, well, I have been still steadily watching my two guilty pleasure shows that I've been watching this season. Kimono Michi Rise Up, aka the pro wrestling isekai, and After School Dice Club, where it's just high school girls playing board games with very little semblance of plot. But they've been fun. But I've been super happy because finally, Teasing Master Takagi-san Season 2 has arrived on Netflix. And it drives me nuts that they make us, they hoard them to do the whole binge watch thing, because that's not my style. I prefer to just get a week to process each episode, but it's really fun to just blaze through and watch. It's a really light, silly show, but at the same time, it's got a lot more heart than the previous two shows I've spoken about, so it's got a nice bit of sweetness to it, and I've been really enjoying getting back in the flow of Nishikata just constantly being frustrated because he's too dumb to understand that Takagi really likes him. So.
And Will?
Gundam Blu-rays. But,
Yeah, I wonder where those came from.
Yeah, so Gundam 0080, Gundam 0083, 8th MS Team, all good OVAs that we're checking out. Otherwise, for simulcast, I've just been in the Beastars waiting party.
Oh.
It's actually kind of been like, I don't want to say it's like a bad season, but it's a very quiet season.
Yeah.
Like, you've got your returning like Juggernaut in My Hero Academia and like another season of Dr. Stone continuing. But like for just new stuff, there hasn't been really anything that I really see a lot of people talking about. I know Sword Art Online's back, and the people who are watching that seem to be really excited. But for new stuff, doesn't really seem to be.
It's very much a filler season, where it's just like there's a whole bunch of side stuff that you might be interested in, and on like the fringes of your interests, but not a lot of big tent poles to hold this season up. I definitely agree with that. It's just a lot of stuff that's kind of been here, done that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then, the winter season's going to be starting in January, and I haven't even taken a look to see what's going to be in there yet. I know we're getting Beastars finally in January, so we'll all be able to binge that, and I think people have been waiting to watch that one for sure. All right, so we're going to get into the decade that was the 2010s, and kind of just talk about, like, overall what some of the big stuff. And it was kind of crazy to look back at a lot of this stuff. Like, if we were looking at 2010, there was only about 90 shows that came out that year. And a lot of them, it's really weird to think that next year they're going to be 10 years old. High School of the Dead, that one to me, like, I actually thought that was out longer than that, which kind of sounds like kind of a weird thing, but I feel like I've been seeing stuff for that forever. The one that blew me away is Princess Jellyfish. It kind of feels like that just kind of came out like just a little bit a while ago, but that might be because of that nice box set that just came out from Kodansha Comics. Angel Beats is another one.
Yeah, Durarara would be one that would make me say, it's that old?
Yeah.
Or like, I thought Black Butler was older, actually.
Black Butler was another one in 2010 too. And like that one's gotten 3 seasons, and I think it was either an OVA or a movie. Yeah. So that series has been around for quite some time. Yep. But yeah, 2010, and then movie wise, the best Haruhi Suzumiya thing, and this is my personal opinion, is the disappearance of Haruhi, and that came out. Yeah, and that's it. But no, I thought that was the best piece of the Haruhi story. And then we also got the, like, kind of looking back, like, to look at what kind of started a resurgence in older stuff was Trigun Badlands Rumble, which was actually a really awesome one-off movie. Like, a lot of the Trigun episodes were very one-offs where, like, you could kind of, it's not exactly like Cowboy Bebop, but you could kind of jump in anywhere and kind of get the gist of what's going on. And the movie kind of just took on great animation, funny story.
You know what's sad is that I remember buying that when it came out new, and I have yet to watch it.
It is really, really good.
It's sitting there in my collection.
I am a huge Yasuhiro Naitao fan, so I love Trigun. So, and then we moved to 2011. And this is kind of the time where I really started remembering starting to actually simulcast some stuff and watching it while it was airing. The big one for me, so I kind of went into, anybody here who watches a lot of anime went into slumps. Like, you just get into a thing where everything feels samey and you kind of get bored of it. And like in 2011, Fate Zero came out, and that like pulled me out of like that like lull. Like, to me, that show was just so awesome. Like, I'd never seen blockbuster style animation in anything before, but like every time 2 of the characters in Fate fought, it was like, it felt like you were watching $120 million Marvel movie. Like, it was just awesome. And then, not to mention, like, other than the horrific info dump that is the first episode where it's an hour of people talking and walking in circles while they talk, the story in that is really good. The characters are great. It's got one of my favorite characters, Alexander. He's in that. But yeah, 2011, like, these shows started like simulcasting about the same time they were coming, so we were able to watch the same as Japan. Blue Exorcist is another one. Anything else on the list you guys see?
Well, I'm seeing Chihaya on this, and I'm like, I don't think we got that over here that soon.
No, that one came a little bit later. Like, I think as of right now, it was only Crunchyroll that was kind of in the game.
Yeah.
Like, Funimation hadn't started yet. Amazon Prime hadn't started picking up
Yeah, it was
anything
just
yet.
crunchy.
Yeah.
And it was an annoying cruise ship boat ad that played in every stinking thing.
Yeah.
Needless to say, they've gotten my money since.
Yeah. Another huge one was Madoka Magica,
Oh yeah.
which kind of subverted the whole magical girl genre, where you had, instead of like, oh, they're gonna save the day, it's like, nope, you have to sign a contract.
It's gonna make
and-
you cry.
Yeah, it was
Not
brutal.
right,
Oh
guys.
yeah.
I still remember like everybody realizing what the show actually was and being like, holy crap, this is insane. But Steins Gate is another one that a lot of people really love. Came out in 2011. Yeah, there's a lot of really Hunter x Hunter finally started airing then too, and that was the amazing remake that
Okay.
Madhouse did. That I was just a really huge fan of.
Yeah. Anohana's on that too, which is
Lots of tears.
really great. Yeah, I was super happy, and then I ended up watching it prior to the fact that NIS doesn't have the license anymore, so
Yeah.
I got an affordable set.
And then Bunny Drop also came out.
Bunny Drop, crushing
Please
people's
watch the
dreams.
anime. Don't read the manga. That's all I'll say for that one. So,
If you're asking us why, just trust us.
Don't ask why.
Yeah, just trust us.
2012. So like in 2010 you had like 90 shows. In 2012 they're up to 140. So things were really starting to change with simulcast and everything going on. And this is the big year. Sword Art Online premiered, and this is kind of the tipping point where we started to see a lot of people who didn't always necessarily watch anime got into Sword Art Online because they were into MMOs, they were into like the gaming style, and I think this just hit the right button for so many people and kind of converted, like if they weren't already maybe an anime fan, they were like dipping their toe in because they like Sword Art Online, and that's when they started being like, well, what can I watch that's like Sword Art Online? And that's when like I think we got people who revisited .hack and stuff like that, shows that were kind of like that. But anything else on the list that people see from 2012?
I know Hyoko was really good, and it took a while to get over here on a physical release.
Yep.
And it's I love that show. I see Kuroko's Basketball too, which, I mean, it was kind of a little bit like Big Wind Up, where it's a sports show. People weren't really into that. It kind of floundered.
What if Dragon Ball but basketball?
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
2 minutes of a basketball game would take up 20 minutes of an episode because they'd have to stop and talk for 10 minutes about his amazing ability to pass the ball without looking.
True.
I love Mr. Kokuro's basketball, but yeah, there's sometimes where I rolled my eyes pretty hard.
Yeah. The other one on this list is Space Brothers, which I think is so underrated.
Yeah.
It's really good.
You mean-
And it's like your characters are adults. They aren't your teeny boppers. They aren't in high school. They're full-fledged adults with careers. And I love the progression of where they go, because they actually interact with NASA, and it's all true on how the process would work, which I learned so much from the Japanese perspective. I'm like, oh, that's how they have astronauts. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's on my watch list of stuff to get to at some point. It's just there's like what 100 episodes or so now.
99 episodes.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I was
It was
close,
a
but
lot.
I mean, I've always been a big
So it's
NASA
cool.
geek. I've been to space camp twice, and so it's just right in my wheelhouse of stuff I really want to watch. It's just
Really
screaming
good.
at me, but like, so yeah, definitely.
Psychopaths came out that year
Oh.
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's another good gateway anime.
Yes.
Yeah, the first season is really great. Second season, not so much. And then
Moving on.
We'll leave it at that.
yeah, the movie was pretty good, but the I know they're in the third season right now. It's currently on Amazon Prime. That's actually one of the ones that's simulcasting right now, and I haven't heard anything about it, which usually tends to mean it's not a good thing. But movie wise, personal favorite of mine, Eva 3.0 came out to anger tons of people all over the place. I thought they were going to get one thing and they got another, which I really liked. I loved it, but there's a lot of people that sure hate 3.0.
I just sat back and ate some popcorn and watched the whole thing implode.
Yeah.
And then next year we're finally getting the conclusion to it, and I'm pretty excited about that too. And then we also got the unfortunate redo of Berserk, which included all the really terrible CG.
Oh yeah.
So, but hopefully one day they will figure it out. We'll get like a Vinland Saga style animation of Berserk, which is my prayers. In 2013, we saw. This is where I always kind of think of the idea that when there was a point where blockbuster anime happened, where it's like everybody was getting around the water cooler and talking about the newest episode of anime. It was 2013 with Attack on Titan.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like Attack on Titan was huge. There were memes all over the place for it. People I didn't know that liked anime were talking about it. Like, did you watch the newest episode? Can you believe what happened to Eren? And like all the mysteries that surrounded it, and like all the jokes of what's in the basement that kind of came with it. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing, and that's kind of where I feel like the blockbuster anime style finally started coming out. And like the worst thing was we didn't get another season of it, I think, until a couple years later.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some of the excitement had died out by then because this last part 2 of the 3rd season was probably some of the best Attack on Titan. And I worry that a lot of people who started with it haven't gotten to the point of watching that new part, which was so great.
I just know, like, I was working at a comic shop at the time, and you could see, like, a lot of crossover between that and the fans of The Walking Dead. It was very much that sort of same vibe of everything's really crappy right now. There are things that are literally out there trying to eat us, and we're just trying to survive. And I felt like there was a natural crossover point for that fandom, and working in the comic shop was cool to see that sort of build up and become a thing.
Yeah, 2013 also saw a show that I think a lot of people have always been like, when's the 2nd season coming? Devil is a Part-Timer.
Oh, please. We need that.
People, I thought that show was hilarious.
It is. It's so good.
And then this is a weird one that I put on here, but I really like Flowers of Evil. It is not for everyone.
It is not.
And especially the way that the show was animated.
Rotoscoped.
Yeah, it's not for everybody, like, eye-wise either, but I really, really like his work. I mean, I already talked about Happiness. He's the mangaka of Happiness, and I just really like his work, the darkness in it. And then Studio Trigger's very first actual thing, Kill la Kill.
Kill la Kill is so bizarre. I don't get it. I tried.
Yeah,
I tried.
I enjoyed it. There's Trigger stuff that I've ended up loving more than that, but yeah, Kill la Kill it's a good time. And then they also did the short Little Witch Academia, which ended up actually getting a full-fledged series, 2013, and also the resurgence of Dragon Ball came out with Battle of Gods, which eventually led to Super being a thing a couple years later. It also saw the last 2 Ghibli movies, Princess Kaguya, which was Takahata's last film, and then he passed away, and then The Wind Rises, which was Miyazaki's last movie, but it sounds like he's making a new movie.
Yeah.
So, but I'll be interested to see, because Wind Rises was so different than a lot of his other stuff, that it was actually based on a true story, a true character, instead of like his whimsical, stories of fantasy. It was just kind of more layered down.
Yeah, and in the 2013s too, back to the TV series, like Eccentric Family to me really stood out too, just because it was a little bizarre, but it was still fun and interesting, and you learned so much about Tanuki lore from Japan. And I remember being kind of confused by the plot, but I rewatched it a couple years ago, and it made way more sense on the second run through. And then the second season just made so much more sense. I really, really would love.
But I don't know who's
going
to release it since NAS America did the first one. And
wake up, your anime part, get it back.
Come on, publisher that wants to publish Eccentric Family, do it.
Yes, I will buy it, please. Promise.
Then we get to 2014, which saw almost, I think, a little over 170 shows.
Jeez.
And like this is like the one that like almost took up like a page. I mean, I'm just like Barakamon, Unlimited Blade Works, which was the second UFO table Fate series that they did. Free, Haikyuu, the JoJo Stardust Crusader, which launched the memes of 1,000 votes all over the world.
So much roundabout.
Monthly Girl Nizaku-kun, No Game No Life, Noragami, Parasite, Rage of Bahamut, Shirobako, Space Dandy, Terran Resonance, Tokyo Ghoul, Yona of the Dawn, and Year Lie in April.
Yeah.
Like, that was a ridiculously huge year for anime.
And I've seen the majority of that list that you just rambled off, too.
Yeah, it's crazy to think how much came out in 2014. And, I mean, there's some really, really good stuff. I remember the big hype between No Game No Life. Another show where people are waiting for a sequel.
Yep.
Space
Still waiting.
Dandy was a Watanabe, awesome,
Oh,
show.
there was so much hype for that too.
Yeah.
When it was coming
Especially
out.
since it also premiered on Adult Swim at the
Yep.
same time.
Yeah,
So that
with
was a big help
nice
for people
English
that
dub.
didn't, want to pay for it.
Yeah, people got super excited for Tokyo Ghoul until they ended up getting to the second season and then wondered what happened. The train went off the rails, and then Tokyo Ghoul Re came out, and everybody's like, "Well, this is still one big giant mess."
Just confirmed.
I absolutely loved Parasite. It got me to read the
Oh,
manga. I've always been one of those people that I think it almost should have ended on the episode with, I can't remember what the female's character name is, was where the main character meets her at the park and takes the child. I thought that was like the emotional climax of that show, and all the stuff that kind of happened after that. I was like, yeah, whatever. But no, Parasite's amazing.
It is, and it's like it's a horror genre, and that's usually not my thing, but it's so good.
Yeah.
I watched the whole thing. I just finally picked up the complete collection recently too.
Yeah, and like if you've been thinking a lot about like the environment and stuff like that, there's a lot of environmental stuff in there too, with the idea of these parasites coming down and like they're trying to take over our bodies and fix our world because we've been doing nothing but destroying it, and it just makes no sense to them why we do the things we do, and it just brings up a lot of really good questions. Terror in Resonance was another one too. I think this was a Noitamina show where I know there was a little bit of controversy when it was airing in Japan because of it having to do with terrorism.
Oh yeah.
And these kids committing the acts they were, but it never took off like I kind of thought it would, but I think it's a great show to bring up nonetheless. And Your Lie in April was another like Onohana, like cry your you know what's gonna happen in the end, but you're still watching the train slowly hit the wall.
And it did such a good job visualizing how the main guy was struggling with everything in his life, and the music itself had great visuals to accompany the actual songs that they were playing.
Yeah.
It was very pretty to watch too.
And then movie-wise, it was actually kind of a quiet year. It was when Marnie was there, which was a Ghibli title, but it wasn't done by Miyazaki or Takahata. And then Expelled from Paradise, which was actually one of the better-looking CG movies. Is unfortunately, I think, out of print now from Aniplex. So 2015, this is it was another pretty awesome year. Assassination Classroom came out. Death Parade, Blood Blockade Battlefront, Sound Euphonium, Ushiro and Tora, Dragon Ball Super made its appearance, Snow White with the red hair, Monster Musume for all the fan service people out there, Overlord, The Return of Lupin. I know that Fujiko Mine came out, which was kind of a side Lupin thing, but the actual Lupin story continued with Part 4. We got a new Gundam in Iron-Blooded Orphans, so not part of the Universal Century, but still did really, really well. And then the amazing One Punch Man that everybody was singing the opening theme all over the world. Anything big on there that pops out to you guys?
Assassination Classroom does to me simply because I heard the scenario of a big yellow octopus-looking teacher teaches kids how to assassinate things, and I'm like, what the heck is this? And I shunned it for the longest time, and the hype wouldn't go away. So I finally broke down and was like, okay, I'm going to watch it so I can say it's stupid, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And now it's one of my favorites. So it's so well done. And I love the fact that the manga and the anime are pretty much a mirror of each other because the manga finished up as it was airing. So they got the actual ending in there. Oh, it's so good, too.
Yeah.
I love the twist at the end.
There's two things on this list that are in my top 5, so I'm not going to say too much.
Yeah, I was going to say there's something here that's online too.
So I'm going to be very quiet.
Snow White with the red hair is another one of my favorites. That did not make my list, so I'm going to gush about it here. Mostly because it got shoved off the list by so many other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that is such a good like fantasy story with realistic problems between falling in love with the prince, even though she didn't even think about it in the first place. He's the one that fell in love with her. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so realistic, and I love the side characters who have enough personality to stand on their own and have standalone episodes. And I've read some of the manga, and some of those scenes with the side characters are actually expanded in the anime. It was done so well. Yeah, I love that show.
Yeah, I mean, One Punch Man, it was the perfect recipe. Madhouse doing the amazing artwork for the show, great soundtrack. All the characters were just so interesting, and just the fact that they took shonen tropes and turned them kind of inside out and made it into a comedy. Like, you know, we always laugh about, like, you know, Goku powering up again and being the strongest one there, but literally you start off the show with, here's the strongest person ever. There's nobody stronger than him. What's it like to live in a world where you can defeat anything? And it's literally a comedy about that. And not to mention the fight scenes are just absolutely beautiful. That last episode where he's fighting the creature from the space, and it's just this epic, unbelievable animated fight, and like he still just takes him to the house at the very end.
Consecutive normal punches.
Movie wise, we saw the Resurrection F movie, Miss Hokusai, The Boy and the Beast, Anthem of the Heart, which I really love this movie, and I never hear anybody talk about it.
Because nobody's seen it. I want to see it.
Yeah,
What is this movie?
I will bring it in for let you guys borrow it. I'm not going to get too much into it, but it kind of is by, I believe, the creator of Onohana. But it has to do with 4 high school students, and they all have their kind of own trauma. And it deals with a girl that has a serious trauma, and you really feel like the story is going in a certain way, and the last half an hour kind of completely redirects it. But I'll bring it in. It was an Aniplex release, I believe, that no longer.
I think it might still be.
Was it still?
I think
awesome.
so.
But yeah, I'll bring it in. I champion it to people all the time.
Yay!
There was also the beginning of the Digimon Tri movies. You know, like the 2010s were very much the what is old is new again, and
I'm so cursing our coworker's name. It's now in my head. The theme song with the Digimon Monsters. Thank you.
I think I always think of the original Japanese song, but
That's a banger. That's a banger.
Yeah, my introduction to Digimon was not the Fox Kids show. It was actually watching the Japanese version. 2016, lots of more anime. This one had some that I feel like I just watched yesterday. Erased, Grimgar of the Fantasy and Ash. This one might be weird for somebody. I put this in here because up until Ascendance of a Bookworm, that I felt like there was never a show that actually dealt with real life, like, consequences of actually being in, you know, another world. Like, these are characters that are put in this world. They're not overpowered. They just have regular, like, abilities. And, like, you can die. You can just die. And they deal with the death of characters. They're weak at first. They have to work hard. They're starving. They don't have money for food. They're living in a farmhouse. It is absolutely depressing. But honestly, the more I, like, watch the show, I'm like, this feels really realistic. This is what I look for in these, like, being in another world, stuck there world. Like,
what show is this?
Grimgar of the Fantasy Match.
I thought, okay. Yes, I lost track of where we were at. I would agree. I
absolutely love that one. Space Patrol Luluco, which I just think is just a hell of a lot of fun. Kind of like the Space Dandy, like you can kind of go in anywhere. ReZero came out then, and also My Hero Academia, just 2 gigantic things. Well, I have personal, like, ReZero's great. It did a lot for Isekai.
It did.
But it just wasn't my...
It has Puck. Puck is awesome.
Yeah. Another one that I really think is just a great time. Haven't you heard? I'm Sakamoto, which has an awesome opening theme. Cabaneri, the Iron Fortress, which is done by the guy who did Attack on Titan, not the manga, but the show. And this was his kind of personal passion project.
Yeah, and it's recently gotten available on Crunchyroll now, too.
Yep, Crunchyroll, and then they did a movie that takes place after the anime that is on Netflix streaming. Food Wars came out then.
Food Wars.
Yeah.
That first episode, it took me 3 times to get through that. 3 times. If you can make it through the first episode and all the wondrous food orgasms, it's good. But just get through that first episode.
Orange is another one I thought. I remember when it was coming out, a lot of people had already read the manga for it and really were excited. And it looked like it did a pretty faithful adaptation.
Yeah, it was very true to the source material.
Mob Psycho 100, which I'm one of the people that actually make the argument that I like this more than I like One Punch Man. Mob Psycho is just awesome. That second season is absolutely amazing if you haven't watched it, especially the final battle. And then the phenomenon that was Yuri on Ice.
Phenomenon.
Oh man,
Came out in
yeah.
2016.
Oh my gosh.
Those were the days.
There's squealing girls everywhere.
That was another one too, where like you had people who weren't fans of anime that were fans of figure skating.
Yep.
They were watching this and absolutely loved it.
Oh, man,
It
but-
also turned up the fan base of actual figure skating. Like so many people were watching that, and all the figure skaters are like, "What's going on? What Yuri? What?"
And now they do routines in the music.
Yes,
Oh,
they
yeah,
do.
routines, music. They dress up as the characters
Yes,
when they
yes.
ice skate.
You were gonna say something.
Oh no, I was just like, I do like the show, but man, the ending to the first episode was so wild.
Yeah. And then another one I wanted to throw on here that I thought was really good was March Comes In Like a Lion.
That's very good.
Another really good emotional show. Movie-wise, it was actually a pretty good year. We saw The Mobile Suit December Sky, which those movies have been really amazing.
Thunderbolt. Oh.
The big One Piece film, Gold, that came out then, and that was probably the biggest One Piece movie so far. We didn't get it over here yet, but Your Name premiered in Japan in 2016. And we all, I mean, that's so big that J.J. Abrams is making a movie about it.
Yeah.
Planetarian, which actually streamed as an OVA series, so we actually got to watch it over here, which is really cool.
It was very good. I remember watching it on Funimation Now when it came out, and I was like, I'm gonna buy that, and then it didn't come out for a long time. I will say on this one, if you do watch it, watch the OVAs. They're the better of the two. The movie that kind of goes beyond a little bit is just a rehash of half the OVAs. It ruins the emotional content. So watch the OVAs and save the movie for a different day.
Silent Voice also came out then. We didn't get it over here for a while longer than that. And then In This Corner of the World, which is one of my personal favorite movies that have come out in the last 10 years, decade for anime. 2017.
Did you miss the Juggernaut on 2016 underneath your Space Patrol Lilica? Did you mention that one? I think
mentioned My Hero.
Yeah, we mentioned My Hero.
Mentioned
Yeah.
Hero Zero.
Yeah.
We didn't
Okay.
really touch on it. but-
Okay, because
Yeah.
it felt like we just jumped those two, and I'm like,
My Hero
it's
is
like
everywhere.
The Juggernauts.
Yeah, it's,
My Hero's everywhere, so I'd rather give some love to some shows that may have been missed by
totally
people.
fair.
it's like this little indie project called My Hero.
This is not like
Okay.
a phenomenon.
Carry on.
So we are in
In
2017. So this wasn't too long ago, but Black Clover made its premiere. Boruto. If you didn't get enough Naruto,
You got more
you
Boruto,
got Boruto.
who looks exactly like him.
Yeah. Ergamanga Sensei came out. Girls Last Tour, which is a really amazing show. And Another World with My Smartphone. Sword Oratoria. Kakaguri. I think that was a Netflix series that came out a little bit later.
Yeah.
But it's really, really stylish, cool. Land of the Lustrous, which was like the first time I was like, oh my god, somebody got CG right in anime.
CG.
Yeah, it's
oh
so
my
good.
gosh.
And these are the people who are doing Beastars. So
Oh,
that's
nice.
the reason why I was like on the bandwagon.
Heck yeah.
Little Witch Academia finally got its actual series. I'm pretty sure this might be on somebody's list. Made in Abyss.
Made in Abyss. That is
Just an
so good.
absolutely amazing series. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, which is going to get another season in 2020. Princess Principal. Recovery of an MMO Junkie, which was the one that I kind of felt like came out of nowhere.
It did. It
Like,
so did.
the people were like, oh, this sounds like a generic thing. And then everybody was like, oh, I'm absolutely in love with it.
Yeah.
And then the creator went on Twitter and made some bad comments, and yeah, but we won't get into that right now. And then I know that Quinn is a huge fan of Saga of the Tanya the Evil. It
It's
came
so
out
good.
then. But no, that was if there was like a top
Jam-packed.
3 years, this is one of the years I think was really good. Mostly just due to the fact of Made in Abyss, Land of the Lustrous,
Yeah.
Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and Tanya of Evil. Like that was a really good year.
It was. And so many people for Made in Abyss were thinking, oh, it's a cutesy wootsy little show. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Yeah. The
No.
movie-wise, it was a huge year. They did the feature-length version of Blame, which I don't think... It didn't adapt the entire series, but adapted the first part. Still waiting for more on that. They did a Code Geass compilation film series, which was kind of leading up to the eventual... them doing an actual sequel. The Heaven's Feel movies, which is the third iteration of Fate's Day Night. We got the early 2000s one, which was the Saber story, and then we had the Unlimited Blade Works, which was the Rin story, and then Heaven's Feel was the Sakura story. Everybody's got their like favorite. I think Heaven's Feel's the best one personally. But
I know nothing.
yeah, Fireworks came out, which was trying to get on the hype train of Your Name, and just never
yes.
really seemed to get there.
I also would note that A Girl Who Leapt Through Time did it better.
Yes.
And earlier.
Mary and
Yes,
the Witch's
much
Flower, which was very reminiscent of the Ghibli style without being a Ghibli film. The Mannheiser Z Infinity movie, which is just all sorts of cool. It's in our sale right now. You should totally pick it up. The next part of the Gundam Thunderbolt came out. Night is Short, Walk On Girl, which is awesome, Yuasa. No Game, No Life Zero movie for people who are waiting for another season. They got a movie instead. And
Still
then
good.
the awesome, I really thought that Ordinal Scale is probably the best Sword Art Online thing. I really, really enjoyed it. I haven't been a fan since the part of the original first season, but I thought the movie did a really, really good job.
I was going to say, that's like ridiculously high praise from you.
Yes, I thought Ordinal Scale was actually done pretty well. So we'll jump to, we got 2 years left.
2 years.
2018,
So much anime.
which was literally just last year. We had Laid Back Camp, the Junji Ito collection, which had a lot of issues with the way it told the stories in the animation, which was kind of sad, but it was cool that that might have been people's first experience to Ito, so hopefully it led them to the manga, which is very much better. Citrus, Pop Team Epic, which led to a bunch of people trying to figure out what half the jokes were because they were very Japanese. The Card Captor Clear Card arc. Violet Evergarden, Violet Evergarden I really like, but the worst part of the show is Violet Evergarden. And I know,
you don't
I
like
always
the main
make that
character.
argument to people that I'm like, it's a great show. The main character sucks. But like all the stories that she covers and the characters she interacts with is like the most interesting part of the show. This didn't make my top 5. It almost did. After the Rain. I have never watched and then read something that, it deals with a very taboo subject of a young girl in high school that falls in love with an older gentleman. And it could have went down so many bad roads. It could have been done very unclassy-like. But this show is so respectful to these characters, the story, the things that happen with them. And it has such a good ending. Like, every week, it was me taking a deep breath, like, oh, this is going to be where I have to stop watching it because it's going to, like, something bad's going to happen. But it always, the guy always stays very respectful. And it just deals with two people at two different parts of their life that are just trying to, deal with it. Like, the girl's injured. She's lost her friend. She's very independent, closed off now. And then this gentleman he's divorced. He used to be a great writer.
He's managing a restaurant and just kind of living life because that's what you do.
Yeah, and like his character, I see so many people that talk like on the internet and stuff like that his character can kind of be personified in like they're at the point where they're just going through the motions and stuff like that, and they had this passion and they're just trying to find a way to get back to where it was. And I can go on about After the Rain forever, so I'm not going to, but it hasn't got a physical release yet.
We do have the manga. It's in the sale, and I also bought that too.
Yes, it's so good. Something that was, I think, very decisive was Darling in the Franxx, where people loved it and people didn't love it. I am the not love it, but there's people who absolutely loved it. That's great. Quinn, I know you really liked it.
I liked it, but the weirder it got, the stupid how to position in the bike robot thing, that just like, no, don't go there. Why are you going there?
See,
but the overall story, yes, I liked.
And that wasn't the thing that pushed me off the edge either. Like, I was like, okay, this is just a thing. I'll get past it. But then I just didn't like kind of the comments that it was making about the way they treated a character that was, she was gay, and like it very much seemed like there was agenda to be like male, female. This is like the way we go with things.
Well, those other kids were piloting the robot things with same gender.
Yeah, what happened to all of them?
They all died. Everybody died on the show. They're all dead.
So yeah, they were in like not as superior as the ones where they had an actual male female.
See, now to me you're reading stuff into this, but I can see your point.
See, and I don't
So
attempt to
just
read
kinda
into
like,
it,
okay,
but I
know.
literally felt like at a certain point I'm like, yeah, they're just shoving this down our throats now. The awesome reboot of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. it's really awesome. You should check it out. I know there's another season that's currently streaming of it. I know that High Dive has the original series, which is good, but it might be it's older animation, and it's not for everybody, but it is one of the best like stories in space ever. Megalobox came out, which was awesome.
That was another one that I didn't think I'd like.
Megalobox?
Yeah, because I was like, it's about boxing, the guys like just strutting their stuff, but it's got such a nice story. And by nice, I don't mean like, oh, it's really nice and you get puppies and kittens at the end. It's just got a very deep story with really well written characters.
Yeah, Wodakoi was another one that was really, really good. Got lost on Amazon, unfortunately.
I want to see it. Let it go, Amazon.
Fooly Cooly Progressive, we finally got kind of, not a direct, well, it's kind of a sequel to the original Fooly Cooly, but, there's differences. Banana Fish, which was one of my personal favorites that came out the last 10 years. I got a lot of people back into the manga as well, and it's just a really awesome story.
Well, it says a lot when the anime comes out and then suddenly the manga is like, oh, hey, maybe we should reprint this. Get it back out there.
And then we literally run out of it every time we get a new match.
And for those that are listening as of the day that this is being released and this week, Banana Fish is in the sale for Viz, so you should check that out. Cells at Work, which got people into science.
Everybody loves the platelets.
The Reincarnated as Slime. This is one I've actually never watched. I know a lot of people really, really like it.
It starts off so strong, and like by the end of the second season,
I think it's only been one season.
Okay, it's just a longer season.
Yeah.
It kind of lost that luster just because the plot kind of shifted in a direction I don't think a lot of people expected. Which, I mean, on its own is fine, but that transition was a little rough. But yeah, the Rimuru is hilarious. I love that, the whole, hey, I'm a slime, but suddenly, and you see in the promotions all this human body that has to be him, but you're like, how did this happen? And I liked how that transition affected him and made him in the human form and what it, the background and what it means. It's really good.
Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, which was another one that I think people were like, oh, that's a long name for a stupid show. And then everybody started watching it, and they were like, wow, this is really good.
It's so good.
Zombieland Saga, which turned an idol show kind of upside down. A lot of comedy, a lot of good stuff there. Goblin Slayer, which it's like, you thought Berserk was dark. Well, get a load of this. It wasn't my personal cup of tea, but
it was like the first episode was a shock factor too, because I've heard that it doesn't stay in the crazy oh my gosh zone.
Yeah, I keep on hearing. So like, if you can get past the first episode, then it's awesome. But then I hear about the first episode, I'm just like,
see, most people me saying that about Food Wars, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. But this, I'm like, sure.
SSSS Gridman,
love Gridman,
which was really, really good too, and just kind of gave a lot of good vibes from a lot of those old school giant mech shows.
Yep, and added a lot of cool like meta features to the storyline too. It's just the stuff they did in that show just blew my mind. I'm so excited. That's what I've got on pre-order then. Like, in a couple months. So.
And then one that will probably be on somebody's list.
I wonder who.
I wonder what place
is Devil May Cry Baby. Yeah. So if I had to say a year that was the best, I would say 2018. Like, just was outstanding. Movie-wise, too, Makia, Liz and the Bluebird, Mirai, the two heroes, My Hero Academia, which usually I'm not a big fan of the shonen movies because it's just like, here's a stupid side story, but they actually like spent a lot of time like doing things with the characters and making it interesting.
Yeah, I kept watching the movie going, oh, that's not canon, that's gonna not make it to the end, but it was still good.
Yeah, Penguin Highway, which was probably my favorite one from last year, and then Super Broly came out, which
that was a surprise. As a person who's watched Dragon Ball Z, I was okay. Like this was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, and not to mention where they had to create more showings for it because they were all selling out.
Yeah.
Like, as a person who is like an anime fan, like, I was like so excited. I'm like, yes, like we finally got into it where like they have to consider like actually putting in a theater like for multiple showings every day. Like, and then we get to this year in review. Dororo came out, another Amazon Lost show that was really, really good. Given, which I had to put on there. Quinn would have killed me.
Yes, yes. The music is great. The characters are great. The story is great, and it's realistically great.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
The Rising of the Shield Hero came out, which that one's been huge this year. Quintessential quintuplets, just huge as well. Promised Neverland, we're getting another season next year. If you like the first season, the show is going to go in directions you're not expecting. It gets
I need
even
to watch
better
that before it gets here.
Yeah, Kaguya-sama, Love is War, and then the phenomenon that was Demon Slayer. I mean, you have like I can't remember the lead singer of Panic at the Disco, like has like a clip online where he's singing the opening theme and like admiring it. Fruits Basket finally got a reboot that is more to the actual manga itself.
Yep.
That's concluded right now, but there's going to be more coming in 2020. We finally got Carol and Tuesday on Netflix. Another amazing Watanabe show. Just has a whole bunch of sprouts of kids on the slope on that one too. Honestly, if there's one show I'd have to pick out that I think nobody watch that I think you should, it's Astro Lost in Space. They just did such a fantastic job on that story. It's 5 manga, and it doesn't feel like they lose anything. They condense everything into a perfect 1-season show. Dr. Stone, Fire Force, which doesn't really seem like it took off like I thought it was going to.
I kind of get the impression that Fire Force is doing what Soul Eater did, where it didn't really make much buzz when it first came out. It kind of got lost, and then I feel like people still like it, and it'll just continue to build.
And also it's got the challenge of going up against something very similar, which is later on in this list of stuff for 2019, where it came out at almost the exact same time and seemed to do, possibly in some people's opinions, better the concept that they worked on. So, but we'll get to that in a second.
Old Maiden of Your Savage Season. This was one too that unfortunately was on High Dive and only on High Dive, but I really liked it. I thought it dealt really well with the awkwardness of being a teenager and first getting into relationships, and I thought it is just very tasteful and very, very good.
And if you don't have access to High Dive, we have manga in the sale.
Yep.
Shameless plug.
Vinland Saga, which I can gush about all day. I'm not going to, but Vinland Saga is great. Sentence of the Bookworm, which really has taken off and been really good. I'm glad it's going to be getting a second season. And then a new Fate series, Fate Grand Order, Babylonia. I know I have not had a chance to catch it, but I know a lot of people have really enjoyed it. Movie-wise, Made in Abyss has been getting a movie compilation with a third one coming out next year for
an actual sequel coming out.
Yep, it'll be the sequel from where the anime left off. Kogias got a sequel, the movie for Lelouch. Guess Lelouch is not dead. Promare, which I thought was just stylish and just tons of freaking fun.
So awesome.
And then we won't be seeing it in theaters till January, but Weathering with You, the successor to Your Name, which has gotten a lot of positive buzz so far. So be interesting. This one will actually probably be nominated for an Oscar this time around.
And it probably still won't win because
Disney.
Hollywood. And Disney.
Because Frozen 2 came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we condensed a decade into a hour of us just kind of going through stuff and gushing here and there. But yeah, no, it has been a great 10 years. I mean, like I said, we are in the age of simulcast where we're basically getting everything the same as Japan. Manga is almost the same way with the Shonen Jump app where we're getting the stuff on Sundays like Japan.
Yeah, Kodansha has their digital first too.
So it's just been great. And the connectivity, when I was watching anime on Toonami and in the early 2000s and stuff like that, there might not be a lot of people to talk to. You'd have to go to the special message boards and stuff like that to find people that shared your similar experiences. And now it's we've got Reddit and all these other big places to talk about this stuff and chat about it, and people have watch parties, and it's just a whole new climate for this stuff. And I mean, it's really awesome to see it become mainstream, and you see the stories of the NFL players, like, you know, getting the tattoos and like doing a touchdown dance that's reminiscent of a Naruto thing, and it's just crazy how much it's kind of just taken over like the popular culture here in America more than ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that leads us to our first number 5 and number 4 of our top 5 list of the decade. I will reiterate that this is our personal top 5. This isn't like the gospel of like, if I pick top like 5, these are the 5 that you have that we say are this way. This is our personal feelings. We'll start with Quinn. Quinn, do you want to give us kind of how you decided what your top 5 were going to be?
Sure. First, I'm going to start off also with another part of the disclaimer for my list is that anything that the masses loved in droves, I ignored because you already know about it. I like the niche shows, so I'm going to highlight those on my list. And a lot of this list, not so much the newer years, like around 2017 or so, like I like these shows and I think they deserve some recognition, but I really kind of, if the show sticks with me and I remember it, that makes a bigger impression on me. So a lot of my top 5 list is actually older, and I'm sure that given another 5 years that some of these shows that are airing now would make this list, but I don't know if they're going to stick with me or not. I like them, but will they be in my mind immediately if I hear their title? So my number 5 pick hails from 2010. And I found it to be really underrated, mostly because the art style put off a lot of people, and that is House of Five Leaves. The author that does the manga, Natsume Ono, she has a very unique art style, and people that have seen Escaflowne might remember that their noses kind of do that weird pointy thing, and people are like, what's going on with that? And I think her artwork kind of mimic that with faces, and they're really long and narrow. The nose is more pointed, but for the story of House of Five Leaves and the visuals, it just left such an impression because it's so artistic, and the main character is a samurai who is down on his luck because his lord has gone under or something. I'm not really sure what happened to the lord at this point in time, but he's out trying to survive, but he wants to do honest work, so he's very limited on what he can do. And he's practically starving when he runs into this guy who's, hey, I've got a job. Just be my bodyguard. You don't even have to do anything. Just stand there and look, intimidating. And the main character is Masa. He is like the most pushover-looking samurai ever. And people think he has no skill. He's just there, you don't have any skill. So the guy takes him on this meetup in the middle of the night, and he ends up having to have Masa defend him, and he's got some super good skills with the sword and defends him, and you find out that the guy who hired him is a little bit of an underground worker. He's more into the Yakuza style. I don't think he really was Yakuza, but he definitely was working in the the underground. And Masa gets paid really well for this one little job, and it feeds him, and he can pay his rent, and so he ends up getting more and more involved into this guy's group of people, and he ends up liking them as friends. And his struggle with trying to justify the fact that he's making money with a guy who doesn't do ethical things is really very hard on him. And I really found that struggle with the characters themselves in the anime so wonderful to watch. And I really like the soundtrack too. It's got a lot of authentic musical instruments that play, and some of them get jazzed up with more modern sounds. And then Natsume Ono has also written Aka, and that came out in 2017 and has a similar art style and has the great mystery with it. So you've got these two shows coming from the one author, and House of Five Leaves to me just because I found it and loved it. And I had to wait for it because it streamed on Funny originally, and then it just sat there, and I'm like, where's my release, guys? Where's my release? And then NIS got it. So they released it, and I've got the limited edition set at home. So
and now you can't
really
get
good.
it anymore.
I know, it's a lie. But that would be my number 5 pick from 2010.
Yeah, I've seen one episode of it, and I thought the art style was very different.
It is very different, and unfortunately, I think that put a lot of people off on it too. But
it's funny because that came out in 2010, and NIS got it, and then another one, Katen Nagatari, which has a very unique art style too, which NIS got, and also You Can't Get Anymore came out then too. And Katen Nagatari is a really good one. It's not on my list, but it's one that I wish Because I don't think anybody has any access to House of Leaves to watch it now, like streaming.
Yeah, not to watch it, no.
And Katanagatari is the same way.
They've got the manga is still available for House of Five Leaves and
Mm-hmm.
Katanagatari. It has the novels that are newly minted. Vertical's
Mm-hmm.
putting those out, but those are the only way to access the story anymore.
This is why you buy physical.
Yeah. Why you buy physical?
Yeah.
You don't know how long those contracts are going to last.
All right, Chris, how did you come up with your list, and what's your number 5?
It was a little bit of a tricky one to put together because, in all honesty, like I actually have a little bit of a blind spot in my anime watching from about like the early teens to about the middle of the decade because I'd kind of gotten out of anime for a while. I honestly got really deep into wrestling about 2011, and that was consuming a lot of my time. And now I've learned to sort of balance that. I'm missing a lot of wrestling lately because there's just way too much of it. But my interests are varied. But I picked the ones that I thought like a lot of cool visual style, a lot of fun storytelling, and just stuff that stuck with me. And like, it's mostly action-y stuff, but not everything I watch is action. It's just sometimes like the slice of life stuff. It's fun, but it can also sort of wash out a little bit and be very samey. And so the ones that had a lot of style and a lot of idea behind them stay out to me. And so my number 5, we'll just get this one out of the way because everybody knew one of these shows would end up on my list. I have a Gundam show.
What?
I know, shocking. There was a lot of good Gundam this past decade with stuff like Unicorn, Iron-Blooded Orphans, but my personal like favorite Gundam show of the decade, that's my number 5, Mobile Suit Gundam: The Origin. And what it does is it takes Char Aznable, the quote-unquote main villain of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, and it fills in his backstory in such a nuanced, brilliant way. Because when you're watching the show from the 70s, it's just like, oh, here's this handsome blonde guy in a mask, and he's really good at flying a robot, and he kind of hates the guys he works with, but you don't know why. And so it goes back to him as a child, and showing all the steps that happened that made him the man that he became, all the political intrigue that he ended up being wrapped up in as the part of being the son of a revolutionary and then having that revolution completely usurped from his family line. And so there's a lot of cool, very house-like struggle, kind of Game of Thrones-y kind of thing, people trying to take control. The devious Zabi family trying to take their will over his families, trying to supplant them, make the like, oh, I mean, we use his image, but no, he didn't really do much. We're the one that are behind it. But then they also do it with modern style art. So they take the designs from the 70s and really polish them nicely to modernize it in such a beautiful way. And it's just such a tense, deep drama that tells you how the villain became the villain and gives you a sense of his motivation. So that was why I really enjoyed that series so much. It just added so much depth to that original show that was just, a kid's show in the 70s and actually made it even more meaningful.
And that was a 6-part OVA series, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 6 parts, yeah. No, and yeah, that was really good. It got into a lot of Char's sister too, who plays a huge part in the original Gundam series as well. So no, that's a really good pick, for sure. All right, Will, what did you put together your list, and what was your number 5?
All right, so I just tried to do as standards as I can, what I thought were quote unquote the best. So I seem to gravitate to anime to somehow like. I don't know how else to say it, but like stand out. Either they've got like a really interesting art style that they're going for, or there's like a concept that's really unique, or they just go about tropes in a way that I wouldn't expect. So for number 5, I ended up picking Made in Abyss for my number 5. I mean, in one word, I just find this 2 words actually. I find this show terrifyingly beautiful.
Oh, that's a good description.
Yeah, it's just first off, the art is just absolutely spectacular. Whether you're looking at the backgrounds or the character animation themselves, it's just beautifully drawn and written, and especially like the encounters with like the Crimson Split Jaw. it's like that giant whale thing that floats around in the air.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that you can really do that on like a TV budget. Like at the beginning or when in her final encounter in one of the layers, like that
It
was
looked like a movie budget.
Yeah.
The whole thing did. Well, for Pete's sakes, they put what the TV series was, cut it up, and made it a movie.
Yeah,
So,
they made-
there we go.
Yeah, and that was great. But I just found also that it was just a really, at least the first like 10 episodes or so, just this really good metaphor for growing up. Because you got Reg and I forget the female character's name.
Ritsu?
Rico,
No,
I
that's
think.
Rico,
Yeah,
yeah.
Reagan.
And how they have to leave their child friends behind to go down into depths that they have no idea what's down there or what to expect. And they just have to learn more about themselves and grow as people. But they also have to receive a lot of help from other people as well. And I thought another cool thing was how the sense of danger was very, very real and very, very apparent. Like, not just with like the different monsters that lurk down there, but especially to people as well. Like, there's a part where Reg fights Ozen. She's that really tall person who
The mushroom hat.
with the mushroom hat who runs the little treehouse. And like, you think that it's going to be one of those stereotypical battles where it's like, oh man, it's going to be so tough, and Ozen's going to be a respectable opponent, but Reg is going to pull out and win the battle. He gets smashed.
Yeah.
He gets absolutely owned. And I thought that was a moment for me where it's like, all right, this really isn't going to be your typical anime.
Yeah, you have a character. You have two characters. You know, one that does have kind of a really strong power, but the main character that follows is very much put into a situation that at any moment that she can die,
Oh, yeah.
and that having those kind of stakes in a show like that, it really adds a lot to the emotion that you're feeling for that character.
And even like the effects that the Abyss has on the characters themselves, it's like, it's that kind of terror that just never leaves. Because you're thinking, if she goes back up, there's going to be problems. But you keep going down. Getting back up's going to be harder. How do you do this? Wait. Terror. Good pick.
Yeah, made the best. I knew it was gonna be on somebody's list.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
too damn good.
And of course, you've got Nanichi and her whole arc in the last like 4
That
episodes.
emotionally devastated
Oh my
everybody.
gosh.
The Kleenexes are needed.
Yeah, there's like a couple episodes, like if you think about the last 10 years, certain episodes that like after you see them, you have to like get up and do something. Like the end of the Nanachi episode, you have to kind of get up and do something else for a minute. I felt like the same way after I saw like the last episode of Your Lie in April. So
Like, I was watching this with my cousin, and he was busy like on his computer when we started watching it. But by the end, he was like, he put the screen away. He was just like,
Good.
oh. It's like that's the kind of anime this show is, which is why it's in my top 5 anime of the decade.
yay! All right, so my top 5. The way I always do it is I think of it as a retrospective of, let's say, you were only able to like put like a couple things into a safe and then give that safe to somebody someday to give people kind of a like a representation of like what anime had, what it was. And I always think of that when I do. I'm actually working on a best of the decade list for movies right now. I did one when I was in film school for the 2000s, and I'm doing one now where me and my buddies are all getting together and doing it now. That some of them I haven't talked to in years, so it's kind of a lot of fun to see what movies they've seen that I haven't seen and how we like reacted to certain ones. But like, so my list is like personal favorites, but stuff that like I really think is kind of a good way to show like different types of the medium of anime. My number 5 might kind of shock some people, and I know there's people that'll be like, well, you know, it's not the greatest anime in the world, but Blood Blockade Battlefront is
good.
my number 5. So this one just had a perfect combination of the creator of Yoshihiro Naitao, who did Trigun, which Trigun was one of my first ever shows, and it was just fun. Like, I was so used to being raised on books and TV shows of the main character who is overpowered and super strong as being, he doesn't say a lot of words, the man with no name. kind of style. And here, Trigun had a main character who was overpowered, but was goofy as all hell. And I'd never seen anything like that. I was like, well, I never knew like the most badass character in a show could have a comedic side. Yeah, like this is awesome. So ever since then, I always loved like that work. I'm hoping one day Trigun gets a remake that's more closer to how the anime was because the manga was, because the anime and the manga are different. But then also the director of the show, Rie Matsumoto, who did Kyosuya Gaiga, which was a very off-the-wall style art show from the 2013. Very out there, very crazy. These two combining together to make this show, I recommend it to anybody who's a fan of Durarara, Baccano, or Trigun. So the premise of the story is, it is New York City, but one day a portal opens up and basically destroys part of New York City, and it fuses together to create this world of humans and aliens and monsters, and they call it Hell Salem's Lot. And it follows the main character called Leonardo Watch, who is a young boy who, when this portal opens, this creature comes out and says, like, I'm going to like take your eyes, and then in the place of your eyes, like, I'll give you a gift. And he was going to lose his eyes, and at the last second, his sister sacrifices herself to save her brother, and her brother gets an ability called the all-seeing eyes, so he's able to see things and realities and stuff like that nobody else is able to see. And it basically starts with his journey coming to the heart of Hell Salem's Lot to try to figure out what's going on with his eyes and how he can give sight back to his sister. And that is just a small part of the insanity which is going on here.
True.
It is, the first episode is so all over the place. I understand why so many people who saw the first episode were like, this is not for me. This is all over the place. What the hell is going on? It follows a group called Libra, which is basically, I don't want to say they're the police, but they're the people
They're like
that try to
vigilantes.
keep the chaos under control.
Yeah.
Because there are cool, just super interesting characters in here. They introduce vampires, and vampires are the strongest creatures known to man. Like, they're super fast, they're super strong, they can regenerate. There's a lot of people that are like, we don't know if they ever decided to uprise, we would all be doomed. And there's an episode where two of the characters of Libra have to fight two of the vampires, and they're losing terribly until the rest of the group kind of gets there. Klaus and Zap. Klaus is just Klaus is such an awesome father figure. Great advice. He has, like, there's so much stuff that he says in that show that I'm like, they could put that up on a plaque on the wall, and that would be a great quote. But
True.
he becomes a great father figure for kind of Leonardo. Zap is the comic relief. He is just kind of all over the place, constantly getting hurt.
He's constantly cranky too.
Yes, he's always picking on Leonardo, so he's almost like his like older brother. They introduce these characters too that like you see him and you won't see him again for 10 episodes. Like Lucky is a guy that is unbelievably unlucky. So like when they introduce this character, he's across the street and he waves at all the characters, and they're like, "Oh my God, why is he here?" And a literal satellite from in space falls down and hits and like hurts Zap.
Yeah.
And it's so all over the place. But within all this chaos is an awesome emotional story of a brother who is trying to do right and help his sister. It also introduces a really cool character duo of White and Black. White is like this character that he meets. She has a cameo in episode 1, kind of introduces more in 2. She refers to herself as a ghost, and you really don't know what that means until like towards the end of it. It's a very tragic story that has to do with these two. A very tragic ending. The only thing that I say the show did not do right, and the reason why I put it at number 5, is because the second season, they couldn't get what they had for the first season for the second season. So instead, the second season is filled with one-off episodes explaining characters, who they are, their backgrounds and stuff like that, which is awesome for me because I wanted to learn more about these characters. But if they were able to, like, I've always thought, like, somebody should re-edit the show and integrate season 2 into season 1 for when these characters get introduced, so you can figure out and get more emotionally attached to them. But instead, it's all dumped in season 2. And then season 2 has actually a really great ending that involves his sister coming to visit, and she's fallen in love, and a monster that kind of throws everything up, and Leonardo has to figure it out. And like, it has a really good message of like friendship, where like it feels like everything is lost. Leonardo is going to lose, his sister is going to be killed, and then like it's just this really cool slow motion scene of like Klaus slowly walking by Leonardo and putting his hand on his shoulder to let him know that he's there, and then Leonardo just taking this monster to the absolute house. It's such an amazing show. I absolutely love it. The manga is really good too, but it is very all over the place too. It has a lot of, like, it feels like it's continuity errors, but it's just because the show is just so absolutely crazy and off the wall. But there's a lot of goodness there. Blood Blockade Battlefront, if you've never seen it, go out and check it. It's streaming.
And the visuals are just like all over the place.
My
Like,
God.
There's so much going on in the background.
Yeah, this is
Wow.
a multiple rewatchable
Yes.
show because you should be the first watch of the show. Watch like wherever the main action is happening,
the plot.
but the second time, like watch it and watch outside of the main plot. Like there's a scene where he's in a train. He's been abducted and he's in a train, and it's this girl who wants to get revenge on her old boyfriend who has this. He's fused with this monster, and she's running it right at him with all of her strength, and he punches it and absolutely wrecks it, and he is spinning around, and there's like a classical like old school Sinatra song playing as he's flying around in midair after all this chaos, and there's so much else that's going on, but all you're seeing is this him flying around like nobody's gonna catch me, I'm gonna die. But yeah, this show, it's great. Blood Blockade Battlefront's my number 5. 2015 is when it came out. So, Quinn, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is a show that when I watched it, I immediately turned around and rewatched it because I got so much joy out of it. Tanaka-kun is always listless. And I know that a lot of people think about the main character being this really lazy guy who just tries to get through life as easy as possible, putting out the least amount of effort. And it sounds like it'd be terrible. It sounds like he'd be a character that you would not like. But Tanaka-kun is just... He's so sincere about wanting to not do things, and his friends are the side characters, and they really carry the show with their personalities. His best friend Ota carries him literally everywhere because it's Tanaka-kun. His entire class is like, yeah, he's lazy, we know, and it's the little subtle humor in this show that I absolutely adore because there's so many little jabs that each of them say and just continue on, and it's just wonderful. Tanaka has I forgot her name, she's like this little ball of energy and just drains him by being in proximity, and he's like, you're tiring me out, and for some reason she's got it in her head that she needs to be like him, so she wants him to be her teacher and teach her the ways of listlessness, and he's just like, no, you're killing me, just no, stop. So there's a couple episodes where she's desperately trying to be taught the ways of listlessness, and he's trying to get away from her, and they figure things out. There's another girl, Shiraishi, I believe was her name, who has reimagined herself in high school from middle school. She was like the nerd, didn't have the makeup, the cool hair or whatever, so she's redone herself to have that image in high school. And there's an entire episode where she's really, really concerned about the fact that she has to wear glasses to see because she's afraid that it's going to make her a nerd again. And they end up convincing her that she's fine after they walked in on her in the copy room actually putting on sweats and having her glasses on and totally ruining this image she's built for herself. And they all become fast friends. There's another girl, I can't think of her name. She's like the Yankee of the group and wears long skirts and is yelling at everybody. And it's this combination of characters that just makes it so fun to watch. In the premium edition that Sentai put out, they even put a sleep mask in there with his eyes, because at one point in the show, he's literally drawn eyes on his eyelids in order to sleep in class. There are lots of gifs out there where he's asleep in the chair, falls out of the chair. There's so many little things that people enjoy from it and brought it out and made it their own. And there's one episode where the kids do your classic, hey, we need to do something for the school festival, and they decide to do a haunted house. And everyone has to participate, and Tanaka wants to do the least amount of work, so they end up telling him he can be a ghost. He can't even scare people because he falls asleep, because it's dark, and it's just nice, and they made him a ghost who lives in a well. So they end up just letting him sleep and draw eyes on him, and he becomes the main attraction that everybody's freaked out about. And he's doing absolutely nothing. I imported the soundtrack, but there's a little song in there where apparently Tanaka at some point put forth the effort to learn how to play piano. So the teacher asks him to play this piano, and it starts off this cheery little song, and in the middle of the song it turns into a minor key, and the background that these poor students are singing, it turned into this, it started out as like a nice little farm scene with green grass, and by the end of the song it's shifted to a cold wind and everything's dead. Because he shifted to this minor key, and it's sometimes there's things where you're like, wait, you had to put effort to learn that, Tanaka. What the heck? One of my favorite scenes in the show is they rearrange seating assignments. He ends up in the front of the class, which means he's gonna, teacher's gonna be like, you're asleep, wake up. And poor little ball of energy girl, she is way in the back, stuck behind Ota, who is this really tall kid, and she can't see. She's like, I need to move. Needless to say, Tanaka, boom, I am there for you. And it's hilarious. So it was one I enjoyed so much that I literally turned around and rewatched it. I told a friend about it once, and then I got all hyped again, so I watched it again. So this came out in 2016, and I've watched it 3.5 times because I don't want to make myself sick of it. But I've enjoyed it so much. I love the show.
That's awesome. All right. Chris, what do you got for number 4?
All right, so for my number 4, this one is a little bit earlier in the decade as well as my earlier pick, but this one was big to me. This was Studio Trigger's big coming out party, Kill la Kill. I was a big fan of Gurren Lagann, one of the last big things that Gainax put out in the previous decade, and you could tell a lot of the people that worked on that went over to Trigger to create this show, and it was just something completely unique compared to everything else that was out there. Like, it just had an intense visual style and a chaotic energy to it that just took me from the start. It revolves around Ryuko, who is trying to seek revenge on the establishment that maybe killed her father. And so she's gotten a gigantic scissor blade that she's using to try and take down her enemies. And along the way, she discovers a sentient school uniform that, when it tastes her blood, transforms into quote-unquote battle armor. It doesn't really cover much of anything, honestly.
It's skimpier than her school outfit.
It's Trigger being Trigger.
Yeah. But she uses her powers to try and take down the evil establishment that led to her father's death and the conspiracies behind it. And it's all built around the Honouji Academy, where it's a school where things are not well there. They're engineering uniforms called Goku uniforms that give their wearers superpowers to try and take her down. And so it's just a bunch of chaos and style and extreme nonsense that I just love. Like, there are, like, all the high-standing students at Honouji, they have their own specialties, and their uniforms accentuate that. So there's, like, the hacker has, like, different computer panels he can patch up, and he doesn't talk much, and when he does, like, the front panel of his coat that covers his mouth opens up and then closes shut. There's one guy who's Ira Gamagori. He's just, like, as big as a house. There's one girl who's just like, I lead the marching band, and so she's got, like, the baton and the drum majorette hat, and she's still a fighter. And it just gets more and more crazy until it's people who are fighting to be nudists. But it's
so accurate.
The storyline is just ridiculous. But just the level of style they put into it, it's just incredible. Like, they do the big, gigantic block letter names that you can see its DNA move on to Promare. Because it's a lot like that, where it's just everything is just accelerated to the maximum. There's no middle sliders in this show. Everything is just cranked up to the maximum at all possible.
It gets very dark too.
Oh yeah, but it's just crazy the things that they do and pull off in that show, and it's just something where they were just like, you know what, go out there, make what you want. Just don't let us hold you back. And so it's just creativity, just gone all the way out possible, just pure spectacle. It just cracks me up so much. I enjoy it.
Yes.
I watched it when it first came out. I always remember being like, if this is everything that Trigger's going to do, it's going to be an exciting next couple of years because I'm so excited to see what other stuff they're going to do too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then we all saw Promare, and Promare was
awesome.
a good time this year.
Yeah.
And Aniplex actually just released a complete collection of Kill la Kill on Blu-ray. So if you
get the whole thing,
if you want to get the whole thing, this is a perfect time to do it. So, Will, number 4.
All right, for number 4, I feel like I'm a big fan of Shinichiro Watanabe, and when I found out there was an anime where he teamed up with Yoko Kanno to do the anime score, I was like, oh man, I gotta see it. And then I fell in love with Kids on the Slope.
Ah, yes.
Just a really lovely short series. It's a period drama set I think it's supposed to be set in the end of the 1960s in Japan.
Yep.
And it's about this high schooler named Kaoru who moves in with his military family to a small town, and he ends up befriending this guy named Sentaro, who is supposed to be this. He's this really big delinquent guy, but then you find out that he's also a big fan of jazz and playing jazz. And he's able to rope Kaoru into joining his jazz sessions, and from there it just becomes this really lovely little friendship / romance, however you want to call it, between the two. Frankly, it's one of my favorite friendships in all time for anime. It's just a very realistic take on friendship and what people go through during that time of their life. But also just showing how music can unite people that you wouldn't otherwise be friends with, and how music overall can heal your soul, get you through all the rough times. And as someone who grew up with listening to jazz, thanks to his dad always putting it during family road trips, and also
worse things to listen to.
Oh yeah, John Coltrane, good stuff.
Nice.
But also just being a person who also played an instrument back in high school and middle school, understanding how music is able to do all those things. This show really gets that. And while sure it might be a bit fast paced and there's some other romances that go on in that show, I just think that the core is just so strong, the animation is so good, the music is absolutely fantastic. I just feel like it really rises above to being one of Watanabe's best shows.
Yep.
Nice.
Agreed.
Warning to everybody who's listening to this, we're going to spoil things. But Kids on the Slope, the ending to that show, when the two main characters are finally reunited after many years of each one of them going down their own road and their own journey, is when they see each other again. Instead of an embrace, a hug, or words to express that, they express it through music. And it is kind of a very awesome, amazing scene that to me only Watanabe would understand and be able to produce. And yeah, Kids on the Slope is really one that I just do not hear enough people talk about, and I think everybody should catch that show. So Sentai has a nice release, and it's cheap right now.
So I picked it up a few months ago. I still haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
No excuses.
Thanks for spoiling, but
sorry.
I'm gonna get to it. No, it's definitely I love stuff like that. Beck Mongolian Chop Squad was one of my favorite anime of the early 2000s, and so I feel like that from what you're saying, that fills a lot of the same sort of connective tissue there, and I'm excited.
Yeah, but it's also got a nice historical angle to it too. So you're also seeing how our music fits into that time period.
Awesome, very cool.
Yeah. If you ever see any memes with anime kids from high school running into the hallway to check something out, it most likely came from Kids on the Slope.
Cool. All right, so my number 4. This is another one that has the most misleading opening of an anime I've ever seen.
Oh no.
That I wasn't lucky enough to see the original short that the show was based off of that led to its creation, and that's Death Parade.
That is so misleading for the opening. You're so right.
I listen to that opening all the time,
It's so
so
good.
I never skip it if it plays on my Spotify. Have you guys ever heard the opening to Death Parade?
Probably, but
it's-
Okay, I'll have to play it after the podcast
Yeah.
is over.
Oh, no.
Sorry, podcast listeners, you're not privy. Go to YouTube and look at the Death Parade opening and just know that it is nothing like what the show actually is. But so back in 2013, Madhouse entered. Every year they do a thing called Anime Mirai, which basically up-and-coming artists from studios are able to create a short work, usually 20 to 30 minutes, to kind of show like what their abilities and stuff like that. And they created a little short called Death Billiards, which was the idea of two people who come down in an elevator into a bar. And they are forced to play a game, and you figure out throughout the progression of the story that the game they're playing, that the winner and the loser, one will be reincarnated, the other one will be sent into the void. There's a lot of religious overtones here, but it's also a lot about just human nature and morality. And a lot of times these characters, when they come down there, their memories are suppressed.
Yep.
So they do not remember the acts or the people they were in their previous life. So a lot of them will go to desperate measures to make sure they win this game because they don't want to lose and go into this void. But yeah, Death Billiards, it was really cool. And I never got to see it until the show came out, but then Death Parade came out, which is an entire series based on this premise where when people die, if two people die at the same time, they're sent down into this bar where they're met by Disum, I think it is. He's an arbiter, basically, which basically he tells them he spins a wheel and they play a game, anywhere from billiards to bowling to an arcade game. And through the game, the story opens up about how these people ended up here, what kind of lives they lived, and stuff like that. Sometimes the story will mislead you and make you think you know somebody very, very well and they deserve to be reincarnated, and you figure out that they're not a good person. And they mislead you with children. They mislead you with older people who seem very nice. The very first people that get sent to this game are a married couple that at first you would think they had a good life together in an unfortunate accident where their car went over a bridge, but you figure out that they're both not very good people at all. And the story progresses and they get mad at the arbiter that is doing the game, like, why did you do this, blah blah. There's another one where it's an idol, a male idol, and a fangirl. And that one is a really good one too, because I believe the fangirl doesn't disappear right away, that she stays around for a little while to be friends with one of the redheaded arbiter. And she's kind of an interesting character. And then there's also this black-haired woman that's there helping Decim out to kind of do his everyday stuff.
And he's kind of new to the job too.
Yes,
right?
he's new to the job, and they're not humans. They're purposely created for this job. So they're not supposed to really have any empathy for these people, but through his relationship with a black-haired woman, which, it's been a little while since I've seen it, but I'm pretty sure that she never gets a name. Even in her flashback, I don't think they ever refer to her name. So she's just this person. He gets to feel empathy, like he feels like, because you end up finding out that the reason she's there is a very tragic story. And she's always in the background. You sometimes don't even feel like that she's going to be a big part of the story until the end. But it all kind of goes down in the end. But I just absolutely love this show. It's one that's easy to introduce to people because I'm like, just watch this episode and just tell me what you think. Because honestly, the first episode, you're going to get a real feel of what the show is all about. It kind of reminds me of Twilight Zone. It's like you turn in like an episode a week and it's going to be this story.
Very anthology vibe.
It's awesome. It never needs another season. It got its point across throughout the whole thing.
Didn't it have a kind of an underlying hint at a bigger story though?
Yes. You meet the older gentleman who is kind of like, I don't want to say he's the god of it all, but he is the overseer of everything. And people will go to talk to him. I think he's always playing billiards, which is kind of a joke to the thing that was originally made. But he's playing billiards, and the billiards are the balls are of planets. It looks like because you can like see through them and stuff like that. So there's a lot of religious overtone and stuff like there. But I mean, the characters are super complex.
Yeah.
And like I always just remember the feeling in my gut at the end when they get into the elevator at the end, and you see for one of them, the light goes up, which means they're reincarnated, and another one, the light goes down, which means they're going into the void and they're never going to be heard from again.
It's like playing The Price is Right. The Price is Right, but not quite.
What kind of game shows did you watch?
Which one's going up? Which one's down? Quick, before the time runs out.
It's Plinko for your life.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but I mean, the show also kind of pushes you to be the judge too. Like, you at the end of an episode, you have personal feelings on what's happened to these certain characters and stuff like that. And I mean, it makes you take a look at your own life, like, you know, what things have you done that's positive? Like, if you were to die today, like, how would you kind of, you know, if there was a judgment like this? And like I said, it's it doesn't really have like a Christian or Buddhist or anything like that. It kind of borrows from all these ideas and it just kind of leaves it there. But yeah, Death Parade is my number 4. There's also another one in 2015 that I just remember every week being super excited to tune into this. And like I said, the black-haired woman, it gets into her story towards the end. It's just a very interesting story. And because there's I said I was going to ruin things, but I kind of don't want to ruin this part.
Yeah, don't ruin this one.
But the reason she is there is different than everybody else, and you will be able to catch on after a little while that why she's different than everybody else. But it doesn't make it any less tragic when they explain the reason why she's there, and it gets into why she's there and how it affected the people that she loved. And I find that statement very, very powerful. Especially in like these, you know, last 10 years where there's been issues with certain epidemics that the show kind of touches on. And I feel that the show does it very tasteful and very classy in the way it does it. But yeah, Death Parade is my number 4.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we have blabbed at you guys quite
We're
a bit
making up
already.
for lost time.
Yeah.
So we are going to
Wants
cut
to
it
for hour number
over
3.
here. We will be back in a week here, and we will go through our top 3 of the decade, our personal top 3 of the decade. If you have any questions or comments for us, ideas on shows that you didn't hear us talk about in the decade, or maybe your own personal, you know, top 5 that you want to throw at us, you can always reach out to us over at rspodcast@rightstuf.com and let us know what you like, what you saw, what we forgot, how dare we forget so-and-so.
It's probably on my list.
Yeah,
I didn't get to say it.
remember, we got 3 more.
Yeah, we got 3
We got
more.
3 more.
This is part 1, folks.
I'm super interested to see if there is going to be anybody that intersects, but honestly, I think that all of our tastes are so very different that I think everybody's going to have a differing opinion. So, but with that, we will leave you, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Later, y'all.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Right Stuf Anime. We'd love to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments to rspodcast@rightstuf.com, and we might just answer them in a future episode. That's rspodcast@rightstuf.com.